What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was betrayed and had a controlling fate quirk. How far betrayal can take someone is special in a world ruled by power. Izuku learned it, even though his life was going great, he was framed and now he became vengeful. All darkness in his soul was let out and finally, he became the maniac he was supposed to be. Ruling villains as well, all bowed to him as soon his power and authority would be too much for anyone to handle. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations, and support the amazing author Big Boy Eisen 125 for writing this story. Now, let's get into the story. Empty, the room is, just like Izuku. He thought it was all hilarious how fate worked for him, cursing him with more sorrow and despair even if life seems to be going alright. He slowly closed his eyes, no longer bothering to care about anything anymore, even if he was in Tartarus. His eyes slowly closed, and so the little light in his eyes faded, the remaining hope that once stood falling. However, he couldn't rest, he really couldn't do anything it seemed. Why haven't you accepted the truth yet, master? A girl's voice rang through the dark abyss of his mind. He quickly turned around, well attempted anyway, trying to find the source of the voice but nothing. Sorry master, but you can't see me, not yet anyway. The voice said from the void of darkness. Where are you? Why call me master? He called out, slightly frightened at what was happening. I am you, or more specifically your Quirk. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't believe those words. He was born quirkless, and he only had a quirk when he had one for all. But he no longer had it. Do you wonder why I am here now? I will tell you then. All quirks have a form in a person, but they all are just part of them. We are different. I am different. In you, I became your only friend when you didn't have one. I became your family when they neglected you. I became what you wanted. The darkness around him slowly went into itself, racing together to form a body. As so quirks have a form in a person, but we can't see them. He asked the forming body, who had opened its eyes, showing a dark green shine that glowed with mischief. A opposite of his once bright green, emerald eyes. Only people who can steal quirks can see them, the voice told him, shocking the poor greenette. All Might didn't tell you everything, did he? The truth about One for All. He has always been a terrible father, but this is a new level. The body formed into a girl with long white glowing hair, dark green mischievous eyes with a small body with pale but fair skin, or what we would call a loli. The rest of the darkness turned into a dress over her, showing her arms still. She smiled towards Izuku, who looked shocked, but even more angry. But my dad went to work overseas, he said in disbelief, a hint of anger in his voice. The lowly girl just sighed and wrapped her hands around him, making a hug. Sorry master for finding out this way, but you needed to know. By the way master, do you want revenge on him? Izuku looked at her shocked, but her smile grew, showing sharp teeth. Your master could rule over the villains, with my power, your quirk, and get revenge on that bastard who was never there for you, and when he was, only ruined your future. Her words slowly made him even more happy to get rid of his mentor. However, there was still a good part of him, but his quirk would get rid of that. Do you know he wants to give your sister the quirk? No. Well, he does. Silent. That was what Izuku was, so quiet, and yet it was so disturbing to be in. Izuku got up and looked at his quirk. What's your name? He simply asked, no longer stuttering, no longer the old him. I have no name, you should yet to name me, but I am you, or a part of you. She told him, and he nodded, then looking down at her, before putting his hand towards her. So allow me to have the power to kill my father and ruin him. Outside of Izuku's mind. That kid must be ruined, warden. A guard told the warden of Tartarus, who rolled his eyes before someone broke into the room. Sir, the new prisoner escaped. The new arriver, being a guard, shouted at then. What? Impossible. No one can escape from here, the warden said sternly before another guard came in. We found him. He is outside Sector B. Get him then. Yes, sir. The warden took a deep breath before looking at the cameras and seeing Izuku, or what he believed to be him. He saw a new person. He had fair skin yet pale. His eyes were smaller, his face of that of a stern, cold yet charming and kind man, and much more taller than he previously was, begin the same height of an average man. His hair was no longer a mess of forest green hair, but one of the darkest blacks the warden had ever seen, reaching his shoulders but being in a mess. His prison uniform was ripped in places and stretched out, thanks to his new muscles around and on him. What happened to this kid? He seems so different. The old man spoke to himself before locking eyes with him through the screen. His once colorful emerald eyes were now so dim and dark, it made him seem more mischievous than Loki. Izuku looked through the camera and scoffed before walking away. However, the footsteps of guards stopped him. "Stop right there. And put your hands up," was what he heard from the guards. "You might want me arrested." His voice made him sound almost noble yet seemed to give off evil intentions. "But you can't ever do it," he finished as they tried to incapacitate him with specially designed guns. "I declare that your attacks shall never hit me." The bullets, before reaching him, darted away from him. "What the hell?" The reaction of the guards and warden was heard, before seeing Izuku speak once more. "Any guard that lay their eyes on me shall perish, that's my law." The warden saw all his men start choking, all in agonizing pain as their lives were taken. A smile appearing on Izuku's face as he looked at the warden. "I can't have any witnesses, now can I?" He spoke out, scaring the warden before hearing his words. "Anyone who has seen what has happened shall forget what has happened here, that is my declaration." And with that he walked away, without a care in the world about anything else. He then disappeared in a cloud of smoke, a quirk of one of the guards. Next day. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA, Principal Nizu office. "Thank you everyone for coming," Nizu said to all the teachers and available heroes that could come there. It would appear that Izuku Yagi has got out of prison and there is no evidence on how he did, yet there was around a group of 17 guards found dead outside of Tartarus, all of suffocation. He showed them all pictures of it, and they all look horrified at the pictures, some not been able to look at the faces of them men, so broken, terrified, it all seemed too cruel for them to be killed in such a way. Even if Izuku was not a traitor, he is now a murderer. He has officially joined the Villians. So we should go after him, right now. The number 2 hero, Endeavor, told them all with a bored look. That would be simple if we knew his quirk. Nizu told them all with a sigh, seeing Toshinori's face pale. His quirk is definitely different to what it once was since the first time we ever saw it. He told them, before hearing a gasp from Midnight. "Wait, this kid escaped from Tartarus." She screamed out, shocked. This of course having an effect on everyone else. Some were shocked, with Midnight, but a fear for Izuku started to build. One kid shouldn't be able to escape Tartarus, especially if they are quirkless. Yet he did it. Toshinori's heart fell at the news. Yes, he escaped Tartarus. The principal told them with a small frown. He killed guards to escape, but the problem is that there is no video evidence either. One kid was able to get out without any evidence at all. We don't have any leads on him. He saw Aizawa get up and gave him a tried sigh. "What is it, Aizawa?" "I will have to inform my class. He came from class 1A, anyway," he tiredly said to the principal, seeing a nod of approval from the rat, and going to his class. "I should do the same, the kids deserve to know," Vlad King told them, doing the same as Aizawa. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA, Class 1A classroom. Aizawa entered his class, hearing the commotion of his students, giving him a headache as usual. He entered hearing Ida telling everyone to be quiet and sit down. Aizawa got to the front of the class with a tried and bored look. As you know, Izuku was arrested for being the so-called traitor. However, even if he was the traitor or not, he has become a villain. He told them all. He saw Izuku's sister, Izumi, looked shocked. Yesterday, at an unknown time, he escaped prison and killed 17 guards without remorse. He has escaped with no lead or evidence to go from, so beware, if you ever see him. He sighed before looking at them all again. Get a hero immediately or the police. He is a threat to us all as he has got his hands on a new quirk, and we do not know what it is. So you're saying that even if Yagi-san is innocent for one crime, he has for sure committed another that is far worse? Momo asked with a sad look, knowing that a potential friend was now a villain. Yes, Yayarozu, you're right, but he is indeed a villain now. He is the enemy you're training to fight. He told them with his usual bored tone but with a bit of comfort for them. The boy you once knew is probably dead, this is a new person. They all nodded before a phone went off. Aizawa looked at his and picked it up. Hey Aizawa. His longtime friend, Hizashi or better known as Mike, spoke. Nizu thinks he found a lead. It's not the best, but if it works, we found our man. He told his friend, who sighed with annoyance. He looked at his class before heading to the door. I have to go back to the meeting, be good while I am gone. Ida, you're in charge. And with that he left the room. Location: Japan unknown. Tamura. A voice came from a TV monitor, shocking the blue-haired boy and his team. I have news to tell you and your team. The voice spoke out. Yes, Sensei. The boy spoke with a raspy voice. What could it be though that is important for you to show me? This. The monitor showed an image of Izuku killing the guards. That guy you see was the same one Himiko had disguised as. What? Said girl screamed out, shocking everyone in the room. No way that guy is the same person. That guy in the screen looks tough and mean, while the boy looked so innocent and cute. I wanted to cut him so badly. She said in a fangirl way which made a black-haired, scarred everywhere man nudge her. Oh right, cough, continue. Anyway, Shigaraki, he is much more powerful now to the point I experienced a new type of fear. He spoke to them before sounding concerned. And he might just become the next me. What do you mean, Sensei? Shigaraki screamed out with concern towards his master's words. What I mean is he can do what I did so long ago, but even better. I would go as far to say that he is more powerful than anyone alive because of his quirk. He told them all, and this time there was identified fear in his voice. Couldn't you easily kill him, Sensei? Why are you scared? Tamura asked like it was clear fact, hearing a frustrated sigh from the monitor. You don't get it yet, Tamura. I know what his quirk is and it scares me. The power alone is enough to rule the world with a single sentence. This time he sounded even more different, scaring everyone at the fear emitting from the device alone. If he so wanted, he could kill all his enemies in a single word. His words wire the threads of fate. His quirk, for God's sake, is called Declaration of Fate. Location: Japan unknown. Someone knows then. Izuku spoke out in his mind with a happy hum from his quirk. What do you want your name to be then? He asked her, walking down the street. He replaced his old clothes, which was just his prisoner uniform, with a black shirt with a green dragon on his chest with the kanji for monster underneath it. Over the shirt was a black coat, and his hair was now more neat than before. His pants were a dark purple with a tint of red here and there. Whatever you like, master. Also, why didn't you just use me to get your clothes? She asked in her happy voice. He sighed before answering. I believe in everyone should have their own free will, and I shouldn't change that. I only will use it in situations I deem necessary. He heard a fake cry from his quirk, which made him slightly smile. Why, master? Why not use me more? You're so cruel to me. She acted hurt, and he slightly chuckled before answering her. You are my little baka, aren't you? She gave him a finger, and he rolled his eyes. You realize the quirks I take become part of you, in turn a part of me. Wait, what? When could you steal quirks? That's not part of me. Is it? She screamed at him, and he sighed before mentally putting a hand over her mouth. You're giving me a headache, and our power is to give something a new fate from what I declare. This even means quirks. He told her with the lowly slowly nodding. And when I give a quirk a new fate, I can make it as if I was born with it, thus it is part of us and no one else. He then realized where they were and smiled to himself. Be quiet now. He thought to himself. What's a good lowly name? I'm right here. She told him with a little smack on his head, in his mind somehow. You didn't tell me you were a firstly lowly now. He told her with him rubbing his head. Sapinterozu. He said to her, and she gave him look. What it matches. You act like an innocent rose but then turn into a deceiving serpent. Stop speaking smart, and give me a normal name. She puffed up her cheeks with an angry lowly glare, making him sigh. What about? It then came to him. Himawari. I have watched all the anime you have. I know what you're doing and fine. She said while still pouting. Aren't you the one acting like my little sister already, and Himawari is one of the cutest anime little sisters, so I choose it. Izuku said proudly, receiving a punch in his stomach, still somehow. I am only accepting it because of the reason, but you should have gave me it straight away, Bakani. And with that she stopped talking with a confused Izuku. Did my quirk just call me a Bakani? He spoke to himself. He then realized why he was there and smiled again, but his dark side more. Now if I am going to get my revenge, I am going to need some people to help. Let's find the former boss, shall we? Izuku walked into the building slowly, every step echoing through the halls of the secret hideout. These villains in here are high-ranking, said to have some of the most deadly of this era under a single leader. He thought to himself. If my plan is to work, I need to gain them as my own, not this guy's. Hey, who's that? Some guards asked, seeing Izuku walk towards them slowly. Don't know, but he is stupid for coming here. Another said too, raising his gun and firing at him. His bullet never hit him though, it could never reach. Your accuracy isn't that good, huh? Izuku stated with a smirk, raising his hand, as he simply caught all the bullets. What the fuck? Is he some sort of hero? Never heard of him. Just fucking shoot the cunt. A guard shouted at them, before his head came from a speeding bullet. They looked at Izuku, who simply held more. I do believe these are yours, would you like them back? He asked, with him not getting a response from the shocked men. Well then it's time for target practice. His smile grew as he launched the rest at them. Inside the underground compound, everyone heard their screams of pain, some bullets even coming through the thick iron door. What's going on? A tall bald man asked his soldiers, who all looked at him with concern. We don't know, boss. I think they all are. He was stopped by a flying, giant, iron door crashing into the group, killing them all. Sorry for my intrusion. Izuku came in with a smile on his face. But it appears I have killed quite a few of you. He looked around and saw basically no one. Where is everyone? What are you doing here? The bald man demanded Izuku to tell him, with him giving a smile that radiated death, shutting him up. I am here to kill the leader of this villain organization and take it for myself, he said with a joyful tone, jumping and landing next to the bald man. You wouldn't be my target now, would you? The bald man gulped as he slowly went back. Well, yes, I am the leader, he said in fear. But I can just give it to you. Now why would I believe you, Death Arms? He told him with a dark arrow growing around him. You see, your thinking is a bit off. By giving it to me, you hope all your guys come back and then take me down together. He stated his plan, shocking the villain. Your men only stay loyal because of money and safety from the government. He walked up to him and punched him in the stomach, making him fall to his knees and holding his stomach in pain. All they need to see is how weak you are, and then they need a strong leader. He heard many footsteps as he looked behind him, seeing multiple people. Boss. Some minor villains shouted with Izuku twisted, smiling. Your men or your life. He then smiled before handing a hand. Or you become a voice for me. Someone who will keep his power, and only having me above you, like a general of mine. What do you say, Death Arms? He asked him, his dark arrow and smile disappearing and turning into an almost peace-like charm. His smile giving off hope and his arrow being so gentle, it would make the worst of the worst become gentle themselves. Death Arms looked at his men, seeing all their faces and then looking at Izuku. You have proven you're strong, but how can you protect them all? He asked in care for his men. My Quirk will be the one for that, listen carefully. I am the only one who knows All Might's weakness here. With me leading you all, we can be known as the people who killed All Might. His gentle arrow was still the same, but his smile was fading every time he mentioned his deadbeat dad's hero name. The villain looked down before putting his hand to Izuku. Fine, I accept to your terms, he told him, grabbing onto Izuku's hand. But I haven't heard anything about you. Who are you? That will be clear soon, but I am the only man who has escaped Tartarus in one piece. He walked away from Death Arms before pointing to all the dead men, with Death Arms watching carefully. Your emperor needs you still, rise and heal. The shock on everyone's face was like seeing a god rise from the ground, when they saw them all get up with no problem. Death Arms quickly looked at him, stunned. Are you a god or something? He asked him, and Izuku looked back with a smile. I am the personification of what it is to be a villain. His eyes started to glow a dark green light, his arrow growing to that of forming a giant dragon behind him, dark green scales with almost black eyes standing tall at the height that nearly reached the clouds. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA, Principal Nizu office. You mean that he could be in the hands of villains and not be one himself, Principal? We just told everyone he was a villain. Vlad King shouted at his boss, who just drank his tea. Yes, and I understand, but looking at Izuku, he is not the person who seems to kill, he only seems to be able to attack when he is driven towards it. I believe someone broke him out and is now keeping him as a hostage. He told everyone at the meeting, looking at them all carefully before looking at two people. All Might and Green Physics. A beeping sound came from nowhere, making Endeavor look at his special phone that sent crime towards him. Looks like the organization, the Death Armada, are robbing a bank, a few thugs at best. He told everyone, getting and moving towards the door, but being stopped by the number 3 hero, Hawks. Listen here, man, this seems to be weird to me. I have dealt with the Death Armada before and this ain't their style, something's not right. He told him with the number 2 hero scoffing. Villains are villains, they all act the same. They're probably trying something new. However, Nizu stopped him this time. I agree with Hawks here, Endeavor. This crime organization is built open different things. They attack more villains than anything else. A bank is not how they work. Someone is trying to bait us in, don't listen to their howls, or the wolves will rip you apart. Nizu told him in a stern tone, making the hero more mad. Mike, however, came in with a concerned look. You might want to check this out. He then showed the live news report. On screen it showed something else than a robbery. It showed the second in command of the Death Armada, Death's mistress. One of the world's most deadliest snipers and assassins, believed to be the best in both. She is a young lady, around her early 20s with fine brown hair that reached her chest. She wore a mask that hid her face, being like a military gas mask. She also wore a copy of a military uniform, modified in areas to make her have more attachments to use with her quirk. She had a slim waist with the average anime chest, said to have an hourglass figure. Listen here carefully, get all the money. His Majesty demands it. She ordered them all, with many coming out with bags of money. The Majesty. All Might questioned on what everyone was thinking. Got to be someone powerful to make her call them that. Aizawa noted as well, looking very suspicious though. Open combat isn't her style though, she strikes from the shadows. Whoever this person is, they must be good as their job. Many agreed with him on that. The villainess detonated a detonator when everyone was finished, the bank becoming a large green fire that was seen from all of Mustafa. They all got away with no hero being able to get there on time. Sir, there is a new villain and has now got the mistress on their side. She would never be that loyal unless she had the utmost respect or loyalty towards the person. Nizu also found perplexing. Death's mistress was once a top government assassin before being a villain. She already knew her targets and how to get to them easily. Whoever it is, I think this act of terrorism is only the beginning of what they have planned. Nizu told them all, sacred about the future and what is going to happen. Death Arms looked at all his men through monitors on his wall, they all looking spectacle of what they were needed for. His adopted daughter standing next to him, tossing a coin in the air with no care. Thank you for coming. As most know, I am no longer the true leader of this organization. I have given power to someone I believe will bring us further into the main spotlight. He told them all with a calm tone. As you know, we committed an act of terrorism towards Japan today, an order from our new leader. My daughter here was the leading figure in the attack. This new leader seems to not understand what we are built on. A general shouted with rage. This person doesn't realize we only attack other villains. And that is why you have grown weak in these years, why no one takes you seriously anymore. A calm, new voice rang out into the meeting room. Death Arms moved to show everyone Izuku sitting on a makeshift throne, with a bored expression pasted on his face. The general from before now was pushed over the edge. You brat. We are feared in all countries. Our members strike fear in all hearts of all villains and heroes. He screamed back. So why then are you barely making the news anymore, You barely get recognized by the world. This made all members look at him with a glare. He didn't mind though. Listen, what I am saying is this. Your enemies do other things than sit around and attack each other. Your achievements are remarkable but not as much as theirs. Hell, the League of Villains infiltrated you around a week ago. What have you done? This made the general sit down with a frown on his face. Right, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Izuku. Izuku stopped for a second and spoke again. Just Izuku. And from now on I am your new true leader, he said with a smile. Many were shocked and were about to protest, but they were stopped. Before you say anything, I have sent you all plans to get rid of those persistent bastards, the new order. You all also keep everything the same, just introduce new methods of villain work so that we can become as famous, no more famous than before. Everyone was quiet. Izuku then smiled again. And our first objective is to disrupt the sports festival that will happen in a few days. Everyone silently listened, some actually liking it. We will blow up the stadium, attack students and heroes and then retreat back. What about All Might? I can give everyone here power that will sort that out. Death Arms. His name being called out made him listen to his boss. Your quirk, true strength. It increases your strength the more pumped you are for a fight. He got out of his chair and moved towards him. You will fight All Might, me and the lovely mistress will go after the little heroes, everyone else will plant bombs around the building. I want the world to see that if we want to, we can make the world burn. He told them all, a dark twisted green gem inside his eyes. But boss, it's too risky. A thug shouted at him, making Izuku look at him with a smile, his violent green eyes dancing with green flames. I understand how this could go, but have faith. This will work, and when it does, we will become even more feared than any other villain. He stated to them all, his smile growing dark, reaching to his ears. They all agreed, now having a newfound respect and fear for their new leader. The meeting ended shortly after, Izuku going to sit back down on his throne while thinking to himself. Death Arms grew a smile and decided to state his opinion. "I think we need to make you a villain costume," he shouted with happiness. His daughter just sighed. "Dad, calm down, we have time before it starts." She looked at Izuku. "Your Highness, have you decided on a costume?" "No, but it would be fun." A dark shadow reached out of him, morphing into his little companion and sister, Himawari. She looked at them with a big smile. "We should do it now. It should be very green with all colors of death and chaos on it as well. With horns," she stated with a big smile and enthusiasm. "Clam down, Himawari," Izuku said with a hint of annoyance clear in his voice. "I have an idea, and here it is." Few days later. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA Sports Festival. "Welcome everyone to this year's sports festival." The very loud hero, Present Mike screamed to the crowd at home and they're watching. "Let us introduce the classes of UA." Cheers followed after he spoke. "Too damn loud, let me sleep," his best friend told him, trying to get some sleep. "Oh come on Izuku, get some energy in your system, yeah?" the hero screamed out again. The class of 1A was getting ready. Izumi, however, heard a voice. 9 is near, the fallen has arrived. She was confused about what she heard. Her dad told her one thing though. Her brother was the 9th user, that would mean he was near. But why? Dad needs to know. She thought to herself. If we find you Oni-chan, then we can give back one for all and be sorry about everything once more. Her thoughts were stopped by a hand testing on her shoulder. "Zumi, you alright?" Katsumi asked, worried about her friend. She nodded quickly, a small tear falling down her face, and thought of her brother. "Come on, let's make Suki proud." She screamed her determination to her friend, getting a good reaction from her. Now presenting Class 1. Mike never finished as his mic was changed to someone else. "You know of my people but not of me, you have ever heard my title but not of me. You seen the warning given to you, yet you do not see through." A voice masked, dark with a hollowness involved inside its voice. "Yet you know of me, you know me, yet you do not. What's going on?" Some heroes thought or said, and the exclusive hero room was where Nizu couldn't even find the location of where it came through or where to find it. "So now I shall trigger your minds to remember my name, the Emperor of Villains." Parts of the stadium started to explode. Screams of terror and fear were deafened by the sounds of explosion going off. Tashinori powered up, getting ready to fight. He ran towards the areas only to receive a punch in his face. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" Death Arms stated with a big smile on his face. The punch sent All Might through 4 walls, while also crashing a lot of the area. "Death Arms," the hero called out surprised. He was shocked to see someone from the old days here. "Right in the flesh, All Might. Have you missed me that much?" His muscles slightly twitched. "You won't beat me, not with your quirk, as His Majesty amplified my power." He released a huge scream. "Far ahead of yours. Kids, this way." Midnight told the students, trying to get them out safely until hearing the sound of a gun behind her head. "You're not going anywhere," Death's mistress told her with a serious tone. "Sensei." Some called out but were all silenced by the sound of footsteps, all stopping their very breathing. "Good job." The voice the same from the monitor, making some have a feeling of terror run through them. "Mistress." The source of the voice was finally seen to them all. A man with long, dark raven hair that reaches his shoulders, having a mask that represented a dragon but piecing, dark glowing green eyes shining through it. He was around average height, but his muscles were clear through his clothes. He wore a dark purple kimono robe with symbols around the shoulder, all showing a dark element to him. He wore a pair of dark red gloves that had small spikes coming off the knuckles. Underneath the kimono was a golden shirt, showing him as a higher person than the rest. He wore combat boots that were accompanied by a dark green pants with a moor on the knees, all having a small little dragon coming down. "Whoarra?" Midnight tried to talk but was hit by the female villain. "How dare you speak to His Majesty without permission?" She hit her again, being stopped by the leader. "Hush, dear mistress, they have yet to see my full terror." He then looked back, his mask now having a mouth with a twisted smile on it. "Let's find one for all." Shocked was all Izumi was in that moment. Having her second quirk being called out scared her. The villain looked carefully, catching a punch from an angry, ash-blonde boy. "You're a piece of shit. You're not better than." He was silenced when his gaze met the villain's. It was almost like he was in a completely different world. A dark, lingering void was around them with twisted, demonic sounds screeching past his ears. "Does the angry dog want a bone?" the villain asked mockingly. "It's over there." He pointed to an area before Bakugo went flying out of his hands. "Damn it," Izumi thought, trying to scold her friend before feeling an almost devilish gaze on her. You don't think I don't know about you, daughter of All Might." Hearing that being called out frightened Izumi to her very core. She saw his finger pointing to her and feeling the gaze of all her friends, classmates, and others at her. "His Majesty called you out, girl. Start moving or say goodbye to your teacher." Midnight now had the gun on her head, a small tear falling from her eyes. However, a scarf of some kind wrapped around Death's mistress' hand. "So the dad of Class 1A arrives," the leader of the villains called out, a sinister glint in his voice. "And more heroes, now this should be fun." "Hello heroes, I haven't introduced myself yet, have I?" the villain asked with a hint of joy in his voice. "My name is Fate," he told them with a simple tone, still a chilling aspect of his dark hollow voice. "Fate, you're under arrest," Green Physics told him, only getting a chuckle from him. "You don't scare me, hero that couldn't save her own son." His hand was grabbed by her through telekinesis. "Sorry, horrible mother of the year." A sudden dark and terrifying bloodlust was unleashed by the villain, sending everyone into a state of panic. Before Green Physics could do anything, her hand was shot by Death's mistress. "Looks like I will leave you two to fight," Fate told them with a dark voice. "Put her in hospital, dear mistress, but make sure she can't be a hero ever again." A message to him, he said with venom in his voice, which the female villain nodded quickly. A crash was heard with Death arms smiling happily above All Might. "See Fate, I could beat him with the new power," he said, then getting a punch from the hero. Fate just slowly shook his head before snapping his fingers. All Might feel in pain as his scar burned with unrelenting pain. "Death arms, your pride gets in the way most of the time. I will deal with him from now on, your fight is with them all." He pointed towards the heroes before his hand was covered in a white cloth. "You're not going anywhere," Ursa had told him before getting a chuckle from Fate. "Have you yet to notice that your quirk is not working on us?" Fate gave him an answer before looking back. "Mr. Aizawa." Shocking all heroes and students that he knew a hero's real name. "Don't be shocked, you know me yet you don't know me," he told him with a cheerful tone. "Just who are you behind that mask?" a hero shouted at him with a chuckle from the black-haired villain. "Idiot, idiot, idiot. The answer is in front of you and yet you ask for me tell you." He disappeared and reappeared in front of the hero with a dark green energy coming off him. "Find out in hell." He ramped his hand through his chest, killing the hero with little difficulty. The lifeless body falling, scaring the students more. "Now All Might, where were we?" he said in a sinister voice, walking towards him while the heroes tried to get the students out, fighting Death arms. "Maybe take that mask off and fight like a man," All Might shouted at him, receiving a dark laugh from Fate. "Like you know about being a man, you couldn't even be a dad. They do say it runs in the family, picked up from your own old man." You could feel the smile grow on Fate's face as the number one hero got even more mad. "But if you do land a hit, I will tell you about your son, Izuku is." Fate lifted his hand and suddenly All Might's vision was changed. "All Might, if you don't beat me then I will kill him and her." He showed a chair of both Izuku and Izumi stuck to it. All Might, without thinking, ran towards Fate, who simply sidestepped him. Number one hero couldn't even save his own son, let alone his own master. Hearing Fate mock him about Nana's death, he ran towards the male again. Being creeped out, however, with Fate's mask-changing smile. "You can't even hit me." His fist went straight through Fate. "You cannot attack me. I am your guilt and regret in human form." He spoke as if he had full authority over what happens. "I declare that you won't be able to hit me until you learn my real name." Fate moved his fist and punched All Might across the face, quicker than his words hitting what All Might would had heard. Fate looked surprised himself, not knowing why a sudden stop in time had happened around him. Not caring much, he continued his assault on the hero. He dodged every hit and attacked him in an area, slowly weakening his enemy. Fate would also allow him to try and hit him, with his fist not being able to hit Fate and just go through. All Might soon became more frustrated and tired. An old feeling of fear creeping up in him. How could one person just play with him like this? His arch nemesis wasn't even able to do this to him. He tried to connect his most famous move, Detroit Smash. However, fate grabbed his fist and broke his fist. How sad, the number one hero can't beat a villain like me. He then heard an explosion and looked in the direction, seeing armed forces and more heroes. The villain sighed before clapping his hands, the sound echoing through the whole stadium. They all soon retreated. Of course, fate made sure to stab All Might's wound with a knife. All Might fell to the ground, completely exhausted and not being able to move his body. The last thing he saw was Izumi running to him, and how badly injured Inko was. With the villains, you could hear the cheers of the thugs throughout the underground compound. Many even thanking the new leader. In the office of said leader, he was looking outside his window to the soldiers with Death's mistress next to him. How badly did you injure her? Izuku asked with his mask off, looking at his second in command. As you instructed, not dead but aimed to destroy her physically. She won't be in action for at least 4 years if treated by Recovery Girl. The female villain told him as he sat on his chair. You look stressed, master. We are alone, Mei, call me Izuku. He told her as the woman's cheeks slightly turned pink. Why yes, Izuku-sama. She responded with a little bow and he slightly chuckled. He then looked at his men again before a smile crept on his face. New order. He spoke to himself before looking at Mei. His mask no longer hiding the smiles he puts on. We shall destroy them soon and then I will use their own plan against my enemies. He told her as she smiled with him. Soon the men heard the laugh of their leader, not knowing why but had a feeling that he was going to brutally destroy one of their many enemies. People in the stands, the world were watching All Might, his fist clenched at looking at the man with smile on his mask's mouth, the green flames of evil burning out of them. Heroes is a very odd term to use for people paid to do it by greedy businesses and all that shit. Fate said, his hands coming together, as a strange odd light emanated between. He opened them, showing people's lives destroyed by heroes in pictures. How fun. Seeing the failures of society in the most unlikely way. By one who is against it. All Might just looked pissed. That is just your way of destroying my moral. It won't work. Fate cackled after, his arrow of death racing off of him, forming a dragon. Only a fool's game. The dragon launched its head towards All Might, mouth open and ready to devour him. All Might dashes to the side, where the dragon crashed, causing a huge hole in the ground. Running. And I thought you were the invincible All Might. But like most things, you hide the truth. He ran towards him, using his arrow to create a sword, one of pure green flames. Yet the blade sides were ridged, sharp and ready to shred everything to pieces. Rushing towards the hero, he jumped into the air, which All Might was guarding from his rush, and spun and kicked him in the face, making him stumble back, as Fate landed and stabbed him in his stomach, making him cough blood. The sword disappeared as Fate then proceeded to use his fist to go into the wounded area. However, All Might catched it and punched him in the face, cracking a part of the mask. Fate stumbled back before laughing maniacally. So you still have power in that body. But I wonder, how long till you drop out of the form? Probably enough to cause your wife only a bit pleasure and disappoint her like you did your father. His hands were coated in his own arrow. This was the point he declared that All Might wouldn't hit him. He first punched him in the stomach again, then uppercut him, jumping into the air while doing so, before using his foot to hook his head and slams it into the ground, causing cracks to form in the ground. Dad! Izumi yelled, trying to get over before a figure jumped into the way. Sorry girlie, but the Emperor is fighting at the moment. He kicked her into the wall. He had a white mask on, his one resembling a frown instead of the smile Fate's has. He had a white Get out the way! Katsuki screamed, launching his explosions to him, but the man pulled out one of his swords and cut it in half before it disappeared. What? Everyone else's, who didn't know, reaction. My quirk is connected to swords. It allows me to cut through any other quirk, no matter what it is. I am my Emperor's sadness. I am unwanted fate or call me Alpha. The Todoroki twins didn't care and went for an attack, a fire and ice combination. However, he cut through them and ran towards them. I am usually what you least want. He proceeded to appear right in front of them, and punched them both in the stomach. After doing so, Black flipped over Katsumi, and then drop-kicked her into a wall. Katsuki was about to attack until he was slammed into the ground by Death Arms. Ha! Look at you! Next number 1. Number 1 failure sounds right. Just like your dreams and friends. What a Pakage! Katsuki growled and tried to fight back, only to punched in the head and knocked out. Izumi was shocked at it all. Her father, mother and friends were being toyed with at this point. Tell me, All Might. Do you view yourself as a god? Fate was still, as All Might tried a Detroit smash and hit the ground. To fuck with him, Fate grabbed a bit cloth and whipped the sweat away, then slapping him with it. He burned it then. What do you mean? He said, tired, yet Fate gave a small chuckle. Of course you do. Why wouldn't you? Everyone says. All Might will save you. And all that. You've taken away what beliefs of man that were once there. Yet like every religion, you will have your Judas, you will have Zeus, your Thor. Some like your Jesus and Buddhas. He told him, grabbing his arm and twisting it round. Your pride and ego is well hidden. Yet it exposed itself around those you are closest to. Like how your son was not worthy until he saved Kunpakugo Eye of bitch cancer. He spoke, seeing All Might's face twist to rage until a crack was heard. He then let go. A human's imagination is the stronger than anything, creating fake answers and truths that are let out. They become an ideologies of many, truth of a society. They form a god. A being to explain it that is not the man but an idea of that man. The ideas of gods are created from beliefs, they aren't real. Death is natural, there is no god for that. Life is a mystery of science that makes us breath and live. There is no god behind the wheel. Yet when a man is made a god by those around him is different. They are real, yet what they do makes them better than others and gives them a place to make their truths real, making them have a following of people who support them and recognize them. People like you. They worship you, see what you do as right and wrong. If someone hates All Might, they are wrong. If someone has a quirk that isn't flashy or cool, they are evil or useless. If they don't flashy like you, they can't be a hero. All corruption in this society stems from you. And now, all we villains are the demons of hell wanting to rule. We want what we couldn't get from you. We want actual truth and not a flaw like you. Izumi rushed in for attack, however, she got such a kick to her gut that it felt like her soul left her body. In a second, she found herself in the changing rooms. I hate you, All Might. The irony of you is enough of your pathetic existence I can take. The pain you have inflicted on me is something more than you have to anyone else. All Might was confused, but his jaw was smashed to the ground by fate. He then placed his hand over his good side and gave him a smile that made the devil quiver. Every part of my pain I have ever felt shall go to you. The scream All Might let out scared everyone in the place, except Fate. Somehow, the smile on his mask was cracking due to the huge smile on his face. Fate was about to crush all the organs, but more heroes arrived and the army. He sighed that his fun was over. But he clapped his hands and they were gone. Why does the boss want this again? Asked a New Order thug, asking his team. New Order's uniform consists of them wearing a full suit of white, a hood over their head and a mask that resembles a knight's mask. That so-called emperor. He is said to be some sort of god or something. The muscular one of the group spoke to them. The smallest just sighed. I believe it, he played with All Might like it was nothing, imagine what he could do to all of us. He spoke to them, getting the back of head hit by the female member. There's no way that man could beat the New Order, especially the boss. You would have to be in charge of Fate to do that. She boosted before they heard a few steps coming from the dark tunnel near them. The darkness moving with the being that walked. A dark green glow was seen as a large amount of gas spread around. Sorry. A sing-song voice spoke to them. But my master wants that, so it's his now. The gas turned purple as the screams of thugs of gasping or choking were heard. Once all were gone, a man came out. His hair was a dusty blue that reached the back of his neck. His eyes were small and having sharp edges to them, with a green glow similar to Izuku's eyes. His face having a permanent smile placed. His skin was pale and dry with an almost sinister element to it. He wore the normal Death Armada uniform, consisting of a black bodysuit with a jacket, all having dark green outlines within. His did change, his jacket was torn up and the sleeves of his it were missing with parts of his uniform in ruins. He walked over to the unique small blue orb on the ground. This is toxin to master. I have got the thingy you wanted, he said to his mic. Good, Izuku's voice came through. Come back to base, I have a very important task for you after this. Is it killing people? He asked excitedly as a hum was said in response. Who? Please tell me. Soon, I still need the object. I can't have you going now. Izuku stopped talking after that, leaving a very happy insane sadistic to get back to him. A few minutes later and a hero on petrol found the scene. The full power of the gas toxin produced were inhumane. They liquefied all the organs of the victims while keeping the victim alive through it all. Later that day. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA, meeting room. How are we going to deal with a monster like that? Endeavor shouted at Nizu. No hero said anything, but all had the same thought. I'm not sure, the principal told him, shocking everyone in the room. His quirk is far too strong, and to say that his plan didn't work to its fullest is an understatement. He successfully attacked us when we were prepared, but attacked when we had our least prepared. He killed others because he could, and aimed not only heroes but also others' lives. Aizawa looked at him. This all happened when you sent an innocent kid to jail. He found a weakness in the system and exploited it to its fullest. Fate might be even a few hundred steps in front of us, all we know. That doesn't explain much to me, Endeavor said. To me, his moves looked as if he was trying to figure everything out for himself. And he didn't really fight properly. His style needs improvement. He told them. Aizawa could agree with this but had counterpoint. That's when he was inoffensive. His defense is possibly the best I have ever seen. He knows when to attack after perfectly dodging. He knows all our weakness before we can even start to fight him. Nizu suddenly spoke. He controls others in some sort of way. Everyone looked at him, and he went on. He stopped All Might from ever hitting him. He stopped Aizawa's quirk from working and gave his men power-ups. Hawks, who just watched the battle, had been thinking something very carefully. How have we never heard of him before? Certainly a quirk that strong and the wilder would have been noticed by now. He looked at Fate carefully on the screen. He's new and seems to have a vengeance towards us. He especially hated All Might, Green Physics, and their daughter. Mike finally decided to join. Izuku Yagi. He either had a connection to him, or he is him. Nizu finished, looking startled. He thought about the facts carefully. Fate could have been the one to get Izuku in prison, then broke him out to start some master plan, or he was the boy. Either way, it was now finding more out about this kid than anything else. Present time. Location: Death Armada's secret compound. Toxin walked in, his rank being Izuku's personal assassin, or what others would say, dog. Either way, there was a great fear for him. Mess with him and you answer to the boss, who was even more feared and powerful. As he got to Izuku's room, he heard the muffled words of him and Mei, also known as Death's mistress. Everyone knew that they were something, they just didn't show it. He entered with a amused smile, seeing as they were having a little session to each other. Hey master. A bullet went past his head, shot by Mei. Say this to anyone and you won't see light again. She warned him, with Toxin just rolling his eyes. You're the one on master's lap, he said about their position. She was sitting on his laps, arms across his neck and his locked around her waist, and were having a make-out session. Why you? Stop. Izuku's voice stopped them both. It appears you caught us in an interesting point, my friend, but it does not matter. Do you have what is needed? Toxin pulled out the orb as a smile appeared on Izuku's face. Master, you never told me why you needed this. Oh Toxin, my friend. This is an orb of energy, created during the time quirks were but new, created by a genius that believed it would power all of Japan but never could finish it. Why is that? Mei asked this time, getting off his lap as he walked over to Toxin. Jealousy. His coworkers wanted the credit for themselves, and well, you get the picture. He received a nod from them both as he grabbed it. And I need it for very special reasons, to start my own weapon. They both still didn't get the picture of why he needed it, but he continued. A few days ago, my men got a very special thing from the great American inventor, David Shield, and now, with this orb, we can use it for ourselves. He then walked to his desk. Toxin, your target is Melissa Shield, daughter of David. I want her alive, no killing. As you wish, master, he said, a bit sad. And then you will kill this man. An image of another rival, Overhaul, appeared. He has a special little project going on. I want to know about it, and also gain this weapon he has. Especially the girl. Toxin nodded before leaving the two alone. Mei walked next to him and hugged his arm. What is your goal? She asked Izuku, who turned his head to look at her. To create a world where no one has to worry about discrimination, and to give order back to a fallen society by creating a new one. He told her with her smiling. I believe we should get back to doing what we were doing, before we were interrupted. He put a hand to her face, turning towards her. So then this makes you my empress. Location: Japan, Mustafa, hospital. Izumi looked at both her parents, both injured greatly. The doctor came in with a gloomy face. You may want to sit, he told her, as she sat down. your father is going to be okay. He will be fine in a few days, but your mother. I'm sorry to say, but she might not make it. Izumi stood there as if her whole world had been split apart. The doctor gave a sympathetic smile. We will do everything. She will be alright after this, I promise. The doctor left as Izumi stood there still frozen. She walked into the room, seeing Inko in such condition. She walked over and sat next to her. Mum? She asked in tears. I'll. She didn't know what to say. She felt a hand on her face. Izumi, Inko said weakly. Did you last one thing for me? She struggled to say, but Izumi listened. I want you to find your brother. I will, and I'll take down fate. I'll take down his followers. I'll make sure this world is a better place, she said to her with tears streaming down her face. Dear, your brother doesn't need us. I have had time to reflect. Only when Toshi gave him a quirk that we took notice of him, she told her with Izumi looking down in shame. Why, you don't think I know? Death's mistress told me something before she left. Izumi looked at her. She told me Izuku is fate. Impossible. The young blonde screamed out, though her heart told her so. Inko just thought of the moment WAG happened. Flashback. Inko breathed in hard. Fighting the female villain was hard. Is that all? She mocked her. I thought the women who can keep All Might a good time would have more stamina, or is it just show? Keep my family out of this. Cursed Inko at her, but before she could do anything, she felt her knee be blown out. You should be careful. You shouldn't let your guard down, she told her as she walked closer. I have killed much more powerful people than you. You are but a leech on All Might who bears his children. Inko got mad but felt her other knee blown out. The mistress got closer with her gun at her head. Now then, Mrs. Yagi, do you want to have your right or left lung still? Because my emperor, Izuku, wants to know. Inko's eyes widened as Death's mistress loaded her gun. Flashback end. The thoughts of what happened after, she did not want to remember. But what she told to her daughter was to keep her daughter's spirit up, a lie. Location. Unknown. Please, I won't do anything, a man said under Izuku's boot. His face filled with fear as he took it off. You promised that you would get me what I wanted, and you better quickly or else. A green, devil-like arrow came off of him, terrifying the man. My men will have some cleaning to do. Why, yes, I promise. Izuku stopped his arrow and walked away, leaving him to himself. Just who is that man? He suddenly lifted in the air, Izuku rising in arm. I don't remember telling you that speaking was still a thing you could do. You have your orders. Leave, because there are so many more men out there who could do the same thing. He released and disappeared into smoke, his men grabbing the man and throwing him out. Don't mess with the boss in any way, one guard said. You tried to trick him and he let you off. The last guy I remember doing that was dead when I saw him again. His guts were all over the place. The man ran off, knowing he had to get WAG he wanted to, else he will die. One day later, night. Location. Japan, Mustafa, UA, Class 1A dorms. The class was silent as they still had the attack clear in their mind. Green physics was said to be in the worst shape, All Might was beaten, and the villain is now regarded as an even bigger threat than anything else. We must train and beat him, Katsuki shouted, but only getting a sigh. We can't even hurt Fate. We probably won't have balls to even go up to him, Shoto said openly. He was not showing emotion, but he was scared about Fate. The perfect combination of terror and evil in his opinion. Fate, a villain who has only been known for a few short days, has become the most deadly villain around. A mastermind that puts other masterminds to shame. He kills because he can, he hurts cause he do whatever he wants. He can attack at any time. Suddenly, the screen of the TV changed to one viewing Izumi in the hospital. She was out cold, and standing above her was Fate, his dark green eyes piercing them all. Heroes, I think this belongs to you, but she now is needed for something else, he simply told. But if you can give me a fight, I will let her go. Oh, and make sure you bring Katsuki. It went off, leaving them all in shock. With Fate. He made sure only Inko was awake as he moved towards her, being next to the bed and looking in her eyes. Your eyes remind me of Izuku, she said weakly. He took off his mask, receiving his true face. You are correct about that. I have changed since the last time we looked at each other, mother. He put venom in the last word. She reached a weak hand to his face. Izuku, you are so different. He put a hand on hers. She slightly cried as she realized her own son ordered this to happen to her. Crying. he asked with disgust, but a smile appeared on her face. You're truly a kind boy. A face of shock took over his face. You give me exactly what I needed, a wake-up call. I can tell in truth you're the hero here. You grew up, and know you kill me, instead of giving a worser fate than what has already happened, she explained with a smile. You act as if you didn't do anything wrong to me. He didn't care before she had a tear run down her face. I guess you don't know the truth, she asked as he looked puzzled. That me and your memories were erased. What? He again asked. Tashinori was jealous that I married a man, Hisashi Midoriya, and had a child with him. A close friend of his had a quirk that erased memories and replaced them. Izuku felt a lot of pain in his head. He started to remember a different man in his mind. He having white hair. He changed our memories. We lived a fake life. Izuku fell to his knees as his memories came back. His mother actually being one, a father that was one. A perfect life without problems he had. No, he said to himself as tears fell down his face, looking at her. Mum. His tears fell as he grabbed her. No. No. The thoughts going to his mind that he was responsible for her death. I'm so sorry. She hugged him. That woman broke in the quirk's power and made me remember. Izuku held her tighter. His tears now moving uncontrolled. Everything that happened was because of Tashinori. Izuku's anger grew, but his sadness was the main emotion currently. I love you, Izu. Her eyes lost color. Her skin turned pale as her heat disappeared. Mum? He asked carefully. No, was all he could say before a dark lighting shot out of him, hitting the ground. His eyes grew darker, having a purple glow to them. A undying rage formed for his kidnapper, All Might. His hair grew out, his power increasing. What? Himawari asked, disturbed from her rest. What is this? It feels so cruel. She suddenly released it was Izuku, and going the memories he had shocked her. He is evolving, responding to his emotions. His power is almost, if not godlike now. Izuku stopped. The worst that came out was the lighting, but the weather outside was chaos. He got up, his eyes darting to his kidnapper, Tashinori. His fists clenched as his mind could only think. You took her away from me, twice. You took my father away from me and gave me this god-forsaken life. I'll destroy everything you stand for and build my new society on your corpse. He could only think on those lines. He moved to Izumi and grabbed her by the neck. You will prove useful after all. A wicked smile appearing around his face, grabbing his mask and walked off. Izuku had went to the roof, his rage yet not turning down. Pure, untamed rage that boiled inside, that the weather around him became chaos. Winds destroying parts of roofs, the skies even darker than before. The air harder to breath, and a raging storm over Mustafa. His eyes, now having a purple glow, watched the city with a new disdain. Near him, the body of Izumi laid. Izuku still needed to vent out his anger, and he had got a whole class to come at him. A part of him just wanting to end Izumi, but he knew that it would be no fun if he did. He would make sure his kidnapper would suffer, that the greatest will fall. Izuku's hair also grew to be under his shoulders, and now also having purple highlights. He also wanted to test his new power he had gained, a bit of excitement. He heard footsteps and turned around, key to note he had his mask on. His mask having a smile with his new eyes having a presence from hell itself. Hello, heroes. His voice was not the same though. Such hatred came through it, but also pain for his lost mother. Give her back and come in quietly. Ida shouted at him, but the eyes of fate, shutting him up. Ida Tenya, has that ever worked? Fate asked sarcastically before raising his hand. Now you can attack me first, but if you fail to impress me, well. He moved his hand to an apartment block. They all die. We didn't agree to that. Katsuki shouted at him. Fate sighed, moving his hands to the sky. He just wanted to play with them now. I do what I want when I want. He now seemed to start singing, his new insanity kicking in. I kill cause it give me pleasure. He seemed to spin as the ground started to glow. I have murdered so many, and yet it is too late for empathy. He did a spin and now in pose, like he was looking at something in his hand in the sky, the moon being in it. I dream so high. I live to fight. So I give a choice. For you to die. He stopped and looked at them before bowing. I believe you know who I am, but I don't know you, or at least, properly. Let's start with introductions before your inevitable demise. Before he could continue, Katsuki tried to hit him, missing completely as he nearly fell off the building. When he tried to his balance back, he felt a pair of hands of his shoulders. "How far will you go to beat me? Because you're only going down." He pushed him off, before speaking. "I declare Katsuki Bakugo's quirk to be useless." He couldn't do anything, as he hit the ground, falling from a 7-story building. The others were in shock and disbelief. Their friend could be dead now. He died, big whoops. "If you knew him like I did, then you would want to do that yourself," he told them, with his mask giving off the death smile it always had. Mina threw acid at him, but it didn't even reach him. She looked shocked as everyone heard the villain's laugh. Ha! Ha! Ha ha! He slowly let out his laugh, before fully realizing it. The sense of death, fear and agony all felt at once. Anyone who heard were only given the picture of the devil. Fate pointed to her. "You are too afraid to even hurt me. I had nothing to do with it." The smile he had on his face only reinforced his laugh's power, even though it could not be seen. "No. It's. Mina tried to speak, but the laugh stopped. "Admit it, girl, you are afraid of me. I can offer you a choice though. Leave and I'll let you live, as well as anyone who goes with her." The amusement was clear. He was toying with them and mocking them. Some definitely wanted to go. He was right, he was their fears. They couldn't confront him because he wasn't just their fear alone. Fate represented fear altogether, he was the world's fear. "No," Shoto told him, determination in his voice. "You have done too much to us and society itself. Beating you here will save many lives." He tried to motivate the others, but he wasn't the best at it, so just hoped it worked. Fate seemed amused by this and chuckled to it all. "Yes, be the hero. First time for everything." He mocked him before raising his hand, fire appearing around his hand. "Let me just give you a few more scars and then we can talk," he told him before provoking him. "Because Daddy won't be here to punish you and Big Brother will be cremated by his own quirk." Shoto shot forward fire at him, while his sister threw ice at him. They both only going past him. Talk about periods. Only one of you should have it though. "Shoto, have you lied to everyone about your gender?" "Shut up. You are just another dumbass villain." Shoto and Katsumi screamed at him, and Fate just rolled his eyes. How could it get even worse? "Okay, Mrs. Terrorist and Mr. Candy Cane, but I am not another dumbass villain. I could kill everyone you love in a second." He pointed towards a building where Mitsuki Bakugo entered. Katsumi's face fell. "I did lose mine, so I can just take yours and make you feel my pain." He saw the others look horrified and he smiled under his mask. A sense of happiness coming over him. He walked towards them and spoke. "Don't forget that if you can't beat me or give me a challenge that I will murder all those people as well." He then snapped his fingers. Appeared several members of the Death Armada. "Please don't tell me that you thought I didn't bring my own security," he mockingly asked before Kyufu went off. A few went over to Mitsuki, kidnapping her. The class were not well off. They were beaten to a pulp by the thugs who all seemed to have a high level of loyalty towards their emperor. They didn't kill them, orders from their leader, but to hurt them physically and mentally. Fate left with Izumi, after destroying the apartment block, winning another battle. This time, he won against some personal demons as well. Soon Izuku's true plan would take effect and the start of the first national villain empire will be born. Set months after the events at the hospital. Fate has gone quiet, keeping to the shadows so that his plan is set. His plan to take over Japan. A man simply walked around the streets. His name known to many. The recently elected president of the Hero Association of Japan. However, they did not know that they just caused their own destruction. Izuku, Emperor of Villains, known as Fate, was now in possession of all the heroes of Japan. He had power over them like he had to the villains. The plan went so smoothly, everything worked. He makes a clone, the clone to govern the heroes and the real him to govern the villains. His appearance has now changed in the months that have passed. So he is less recognizable and harder to track. He now teleported to his base of operations, allowing his clone to do his dirty work. He felt like Palpatine at this point, controlling both sides to later to give himself overall power and control. Once he appeared, he walked over to his room, entering and seeing Mei looking at her book. She looked up and smiled. "Hello, President," she said teasingly. He rolled his eyes. Yara Mei-chan. Always new names," he said with a smile. Lately, Izuku stopped being an opposing figure to his men and started being light-hearted. all to make sure that they would be more loyal. He didn't trust anyone but Maydetha's mistress. With this, they follow him with pure loyalty. He gave everything they needed to live and survive. To them, he was their god. Can't help it, Your Maj. A hand appeared on her mouth. Izuku looked into her eyes. To you, it's Izuku. My empress. He smiled to her. But he needed to focus on his enemy. With the clone. Good morning, sir, and it's time for your first day on the job. The secretary told him. He only smiled and rubbed the back of his head. It was hard to make a different personality, but he did eventually. Thanks, he replied. She gestured for him to follow, and he did. They both went into the main office, his office. Here you are, President Midoriya. He nodded with a smile, and she left. He saw the amount of paperwork and gained a depressed aura. Real life was paying. He suddenly got a call and he answered it, meeting the principal of UA. Good morning, sir. As you have most likely been informed about Fate and the League of Villains, we would like for you to join in our interview and also see the next batch of heroes. That would be splendid. I will get there as soon as I can. He told him before it stopped. Izuku sat down and looked outside his window. An evil glint emerged from his eye. You have no idea what I can do. Poor little rat, soon I will be in control. He let out a cackle. He got up after a few minutes and some bits of paperwork. He got out and met his secretary who knew of the visit. They both got ready to leave, as Izuku got in. Of course, he was guarded by many well-trained and armed personnel. Sir, how are you liking your job? She asked him. He smiled nervously. Well, lots of paperwork. She giggled and continued to talk. Turns out her name was Li Bai. She was a young woman who just tried her best for him. He truly felt sorry that he was using her. Maybe she could join. Sir, we're here, one of the guards said, shocking Izuku. Already? The guards nodded and he got out, meeting the school once more. If you saw his eyes, the pure hatred, disdain and disgust was present. He had to hide that though. He walked to the front gate and met the principal. He slightly bowed. Hello, Nizu. He said kindly and the rat responded the same way. They entered the school and traveled around and talked. The meeting would be in an hour, so they had time. Izuku then was shown to Class 1A. Izuku inside literally laughed his ass off about what happened. He wanted to see their faces of hopelessness. See their defeated faces. It felt so good to be in control. Nizu knocked on the door and were let in. The class saw Izuku. Everyone did feel like they knew him, yet they didn't know why. He looked at them all and smiled, hiding his true feelings away. Good morning, Class 1A. He greeted with a fake kind smile, having to make a fake personality so he wouldn't be caught. I am the new president of Hero Association. Everyone looked on with shock. Is everyone here? It seems 2 seats are missing students. He said to them all and pointed to the seats of his and his stepsister's seat. They were Izuku and Izumi Yagi. Izuku slowly nodded. He wanted to hear this. Izumi was kidnapped by Fate and nothing is known of where she is. Izuku was considered the UA traitor. Nizu told him that. Izuku knew that he could use this against them. Was there any solid proof on this matter? He asked. He knew that he will use this to control them. Video evidence, sir. Ida called out, making him turn around. Stupid. They all heard him say, shocking them. Did you forget about shape-shifting quirks? They all didn't respond. We're doomed. This is the future. He mocked them, making them angry, and he loved it. You put someone in jail with not so solid proof. I suggest you get better because if something like this happens again, I will blacklist you from hero schools. You must identify in these situations correctly and decide it after you put the facts together. They all nodded and he looked at Nizu. And a new principal. Come now, Nizu, we have meeting. He told the principal, who nodded quickly, wanting to keep his job that seemed to now be in danger. The walk was a quiet one until they got there. Eyes were on them both. Izuku sat down on the chair closet to the door. Thank you all, Nizu said. I bring the new president of the Hero Association here. Mr. Midoriya can help us. They all nodded and Izuku got comfortable. He wanted to hear them and their plans. How he could ruin them. Fate has not been active in months since he attacked the students. I'm sorry, what? Izuku spoke out. He looked at Nizu, who knew that he fucked up saying they. How did you let your students fight Fate? He took All Might easily and you think that class can do it with their limited brain capacity. Move on, but this is going on list of failures of UA, Nizu. Hawks decided to speak. The inventor David Shield with his daughter, Melissa Shield, have disappeared. We believe it to link it to him. Izuku nodded. Toxin was still after Overhaul. He was elusive. He only wanted the girl, however. She would be useful. A quirk of hers made her into something that would later be his successor. Fate also killed Inko. All Might said, getting a reaction from Izuku. You don't think I know the truth, All Might? Izuku spoke out, glaring at him. You're nothing more than a villain. Another word and I will make it public knowledge and you arrested. He shut up after that. He got up and started to walk out. This was a complete waste of time, Nizu. All I have got is failures. No wonder why he is so successful. He walked out, making the others realize what he meant. Fate knew how they worked, their failures and how to exploit them. He was ahead all time because of this. Toxin. The said man jumped as he saw a mist version of his master appear. His face was covered with total darkness, and barely any of him was visible. Master. He bowed to Izuku, who looked down to him. I have located what you seek. Shall I destroy? He asked with pure joy. The shadow just walked behind him. Kill all but the girl. I have use for her. He told him. Toxin seemed ready and without a second thought or word. He rushed towards the Yakuza base. Full intent to destroy, massacre, and torture them all. The bloodbath begins. If to say that Sir Knight I didn't see this was partly true. He did find evidence of the conversation, yet he could not determine whose voice it belonged to. He speculated that it was Fate's and if so, his return. This toxin needed to be captured because of the connection to Fate. But the heroes would be too late. Even with Toxin's personality and how he does things. He is quick. The base was in ruins. It reeked of blood and toxic fumes. The horrified faces of the victims and the positions they have died in. Toxin was truly a monster. They did find Overhaul's body. He was tortured, hands ripped off. Body had been opened up, dissected. Blood was stained all over. Toxin did what was needed. There was supposed to be a girl, but she was nowhere to be seen. She was now in Fate's hands. His evil will soon spread further. Fate's grand plan has begun, for total control and a utopia. A villainous and heroic goal. Master. I have got her. Toxin shouted to Izuku, who looked at the scarred and terrified girl. She looked at the two figures in the room. The first being a woman. She is a young lady, around her early 20s with smooth brown hair, neatly combed. Her figure seemingly like an hourglass. She wore a kimono being a dark blue with a black strap holding it together by the waist. She also seemed to have a pair of emerald earrings. Her skin was as fair as the sun as well. She almost radiated a motherly aura towards the girl with her smile. The second terrified her slightly. A man with long raven black hair that reached the bottom of his shoulder blades with burning crimson eyes. His skin was as fair as the women's, except his aura demands control and obeisance. He wore a light black kimono under a white haori, with a pattern of the sun above the clouds on his back. He also seemed to wear similar earrings to other in the room. Leave us. He ordered and Toxin left. May standing next to him, a smile on her face. Do not be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. He gently said as he got on one knee. She took steps back. May went forward and picked her up. She was shaking in terror. Don't worry please. Mummy is here. She gently told her, stroking her hair as Izuku wondered if they agreed on being her parents. Mummy. She quietly asked and the brunette woman nodded. Over there is Daddy. She pointed to Izuku who looked shocked. They didn't agree to this. I wanted a successor of my empire. I didn't want a daughter or son. Izuku thought until he saw the glare from his girlfriend. He gulped and walked over. He patted her head with a smile. I am the one who ordered Toxin to save you. Call me Dad from now on, he said with a smile, making the girl calm down. Papa? She asked the man who grabbed her from May's hands and nodded. The little girl's eyes shined with happiness, and she let out a sun-deafening smile. Izuku's motivation grew with it. I kill people to protect your innocence. I killed to protect you all from danger. Maybe this is the true path for me. Maybe I was born to make society burn and built a utopia from its ashes. He thought to himself as the little girl cried into his shirt. Group hug. The female villain shouted with pure joy. She engulfed them all, making Izuku look down on their smiling faces. This is what every child should experience. Love and affection. He will make sure his life wouldn't be retraced by anyone else. Mei-chan. Izuku called his girlfriend who blushed a bit. It was the first time she ever heard his voice in such a way. I think she would love to meet her granddad, right? He mentioned death arms, which Mei smiled and took airy. It was clear Izuku had a plan for something. After they left, he went to another section of the base. The holding cells? Do not let the name fool you, it was anything but that. It was a place where people would be forced into seeing the truth of Izuku's words. Where he would persuade them to join. All except one. One person he found pleasure in making them suffer. As he went past his men, all of them showing respect in their own way. Izuku was still terrifying for them all even when he was better to them. The very way he walked was one of total and complete power. I heard the Emperor is adopting a child. Only a worthy candidate should be his child. Then we should welcome our young master. Wait. There's the Emperor. Be quiet, idiot. They all bowed to as he passed. His gaze not once going on them. He just walked past. His arrow was something else though. It could kill someone in a heartbeat. Some would even describe him as a god of dragons. His name being the Dragon of Truth in Villain World. He entered the cells. As he walked past, he heard the screams of people all over. He soon got to the last cell. Inside, a girl who still resisted everything that had happened. You still resist. It's futile. You should give up and live your life, Izuku said as he opened the door to see his fake sister. Her face full of tears as her brother looked down on her. You're just a villain, she said, her chains rattling as Izuku chuckled, which soon became a laugh. Your jokes never cease to amaze me. Villian. The words of villains and heroes is wasted these days. There is no such thing as a hero. Izumi was going to respond, but his dark crimson eyes stared down at her. What happened to your eyes? She was scared in looking at them. The feeling of dread washing over. These eyes are a sign of the corruption and horrors of this world. One day, you will learn from your once perfect life. He stared to walk out, but a twisted smile came across his face. Let me show you a villain. He clicked his fingers as the lights came on. Her eyes widened at who she saw. She saw an ant. Move to the south. Defend it. His neck was snapped by falling debris as the roof shook from the battle that was happening. The Death Armada launching a surprise attack on New Order. They didn't have time to prepare as they attacked. Now the streets are covered in pools of blood. New Order thugs were easily taken out by Death Armada's forces, organized to counter them perfectly. It was a massacre, with only New Order suffering casualties. Why aren't they going down? It's that so-called Emperor's doing. I thought his quirk was to control people's actions with telekinesis. Roaring Dragon. They heard the loud shout as Death Arms punched, making the area blow up in dust and debris. You have let yourself go. A man spoke with no care, slicing the neck of New Order Thig. He had silver hair, his eyes having the shape of a plus in his golden eyes. He had the normal Death Armada uniform, though having a cape that covered his right half. He carried a long, sharp zombie knife with his left hand having a robotic look. This new leader of ours wants war. He will send the world into a burning inferno because of boredom. A smile appeared on his face and he chuckled. I just can't wait. You can say that. Death Arms shouted with joy, crushing the head of a skinny thug. He takes over New Order and his control is almost complete. Who knows what he will do next? Location. Yue. Did you hear that Fate has returned? Some students kept on speaking about Fate. Apparently, he was returning into the spotlight and many were scared of that one thing. Fate's power was unparalleled and yet unknown. He was able to hide it, or maybe he made it obvious. Nobody knows what he can do, but it terrified the people of Japan. However, Izuku has had time to test the limits of his power. His quirk gave him other abilities then to control one or more things' fate. He could now do things that were impossible for a human, even with a quirk, to do. Suddenly, the screens in the streets of Japan showed the current president of Hero Association, Izuku Midoriya, had started to speak. Today terrible atrocities have been committed by the Death Armada and their leader, Fate. The number of deaths in his new attack are unknown but are above 1,000, and we have only started to count. Many students, who were looking at the screen, were in pure shock. But then they heard something even more different. But I do put part of the blame on our so-called heroes. The number of deaths and Fate himself could have been stopped if they had actually done their job. So, in relation of this, every hero who is deemed unfit for their job will lose their money and be classified as a villain from now on. They have not done their job that they have promised to do, and that is protect the people of Japan. As the leader of the association that is to protect my people, I have no choice in this matter. And for upcoming heroes, tests will be harder on you. You will have to deem yourself worthy as being a hero by several other heroes and me personally. You now must follow the rules that I set on you, and if not, you will be met with harsh punishment. I also now shall speak out some acts that so-called heroes have done in their time in service. Murder, rob, bribery, arson, mass murders, black market purchasing, slavery, child labor, quirk discrimination, hate crimes around people with mutations, association with Villian groups, brainwashing. These are to name a few of what they have done. And with this, around 89% of heroes in Japan are now no longer in work. I have also been given permission by the President of Japan to issue the death penalty for a lot of them. 76% will now be issued the death penalty as for these crimes. Silence. That was all that Japan was. The people were left stunned as their leader of their heroes has now gotten rid of most. But now, many started to change their views on them. Suddenly, most heroes were now being called names like pretenders and murders. The villains, who were shocked themselves, especially LOV, were in complete shock. Their leader Tamura Shigaraki was more shocked than anyone. His plan was to get rid of heroes, yet the president of the Hero Association did his job. In a weird way, crime died down. The next report from Izuku actually said that most villains were wrongfully accused and were to be let back into society. Hell, the world was shocked. So many heroes from other countries were scared that if Izuku's example was to spread, the number would decrease. He also funded the Villian rehabilitation program, which people who were accused for being villains and weren't, would go through this and then let back with $25,000. They would also be given a job opportunity to work for Izuku's personal hero Breakers, a group designed to get rid of fakes. Leader of the organization, Stain. Of course, out of public eyes. Vigilantes were actually counted as heroes as Izuku claimed that true heroes aren't government pawns. But the one who was most pleased was Izuku. His plan, to destroy society and rebuild it, was working. Now, he had full control over the heroes and now with this, could run for president of Japan and claim the title. He would have full control over Japan and then, he would start on the world. Many people of the public started to speak up that Izuku was one of the true heroes that has been around. People like Endeavor were able to get away but not for long. Izuku had a plan for them. And Stain was given the task of finding dirt on him, giving it to Izuku so he could publicly condemn and shame him, and then send the hero Breakers to deal with him. And to make a bonus, people started to chant Fate's name. Now, he wasn't seen as the evil emperor of villains but the bringer of peace through violence. People were more drawn to Death Armada now. And soon enough, even All Might was called into question, which pleased Izuku as if he was found guilty, he could get revenge for Inko and for himself. People who went to hero schools were now picked personally by the president. His reasons being that the tests and reasonings were not good enough, and he had to get involved. UA was the hardest hit, and the heroes there were lucky as Izuku knew they were good people. He did give the rules of making sure the rules of heroes were driven into their heads, and now, recommendations were no longer a thing. You had to prove yourself worthy to get into hero schools, no easy path. But if they did fail, they would be given a choice for a profession and also be put into the new hero program, which were made for jobs like police officers and doctors. Katsuki Bakugo, who survived his last encounter with fate by pure luck, was blacklisted as Izuku found him unworthy and also stated he would be a better villain with his attitude. People's dreams of becoming heroes were now highlighted in other professions, and no people were more drawn to them. And this all happened in 3 months. And now, Izuku was nearing his complete takeover of Japan. He also changed the symbol of heroes to this, which was the symbol of Imperial Japan, hinting at Izuku's empire. Yet people wouldn't have noticed. Actually, people of Japan seemed to go back to more traditional routes, which made Izuku happy because he was a fan of Japanese traditions. Now about New Order. Fate had now entered the battle. Many of the New Order thugs tried to attack him, but were killed by him easily. He had quickly destroyed their force holding the west section of their base. Over at east, Death's mistress had successfully destroyed their forces by well-placed bombs and sniping. This had only weakened their forces, and now they were on the retreat. But their leader had challenged fate and lost easily. For his hyped-up power, he was nothing but a nuisance to him. He had destroyed him, but didn't kill him. Instead, he was humiliated by him. Fate had taken over New Order, now becoming part of Death Armada, creating the new order of Death's Armada. And with that, Izuku not only controlled the heroes, but now nearly the villains. All that stood in his way was the League of Villains. And it wouldn't be pretty for the League of Villains. Sir. Lee came into the room where Izuku was in. She was in a hurry to deliver important news to him. A senator of the United States wants to meet you. Izuku turned to look at her, of course not expecting anyone. He was confused. Out of everyone he was expecting, the United States was not one. Put him through, he told her as the screen rose down. Turning on, he saw the face he wasn't expecting. John. The man smiled and waved at him. Happy to see him again. Hey boss. Looks like we both are in the position of power. He smiled as Izuku did as well. He was happy to see someone he was familiar with. Anyway, I have big news. I have become the senator but also have teamed up with Fraction here in America that modifies people. Also, when do we use it? His voice changed from being joyful to serious. Izuku himself knew what he meant. A smile crept on his face. Not yet. We still have work to do. But make sure you do the plan. Send America into a war with Russia, India and China. It will get the heat off my back and take over those countries will be easy. And if it works, we can start on the rest. John smiled and bid his farewell. Lee, who was in the room, looked at her boss and moved back. He saw this and made the guards close the doors. But you couldn't, she said in disbelief as Izuku got up. He walked towards as she stepped back, getting into a corner, unable to get away. Why? People will die. She screamed at him, but he simply smiled. He got rid of the hair in her face and spoke. Lee, be a good girl now. I know it's tough for you to understand, but I promise it's for a good cause. You know me, I am a good person. She breathed in slowly and decided to listen. You see, the world won't change so easily by words. Humans have always done better with actions. Actually, discrimination against the Jews truly died down after what happened during that time. The Europeans were highly hateful to the Jews because of their Christian roots. He spoke and moved away, getting a map up of the world. Quirks have destroyed that world of freedom we were building during the time they came around. These things made discrimination rise again, and then it caused people to racist and be fine with it. Lee blinked but slowly nodded. Izuku smiled and pointed to America. Land of the free. Do you know the amount of people with mutations Quirk and Quirkless people died last year in America? And no sir. Lee barely spoke as Izuku huffed. He brought up a chart as the woman put her hands to her mouth in shock. 3.5 million people, Izuku stated, making the women fall to her knees. Izuku had made people of Japan see the horrors of the world. If he hadn't, they wouldn't react like this. This world is cruel now. I plan on making this war so people open their eyes. No longer people suffer because of being different. I don't care if people are different, we are humans. Yet the only place on earth that seems to see that is Japan after I opened everyone's eyes. He came closer and hugged the fallen Lee who was still in shock. I will bring the same peace I did here so that I can finally unite people. There will be freedom, justice, unity. There will be humanity, he stated as Lee slowly nodded. She was at a loss of words. But she had come to a realization. Izuku has to be the villain so the world can finally progress. How it's always been. The world had fallen, humanity had fallen. But now, all he could think was if Izuku was a gift from God or gods. At the new Order of Death's Armada's base, Mei was currently playing with Eri as Izuku worked there as well. He knew that his other self had finally spoken to Lee, and made her on his side. Izuku was currently looking at his plans to build what he wanted. Papa. Eri pulled his leg and he looked at her. Mummy says Auntie is somewhere. Izuku's face dropped the smile and Eri was confused. Mei was currently afraid at that. She didn't want Eri to know Izumi's punishment by him. Izuku was cruel in nature to a few people. Her punishment was something that no one would ever want to have. She is a very bad person, and so is serving a punishment for harming your papa in some way. As you know, anyone who harms me is truly evil. Eri nodded but still confused. Actually, a scheme by Izuku was to train the children of Japan to see Izuku as a hero figure and someone who was saint. To harm him was like smacking God in the face. The reason for this is simple. Children will be brought up with different ideals and that would eventually lead to a possible uprising. If they were to agree on Izuku's rule being the best thing possible, then it would benefit him nicely. He also wanted his adopted daughter to know that everything her father did was right and that Izuku is not only a good person, but his actions are justified. Mei smiled, seeing Izuku having a slight smile on his face. In truth, no one had really seen him with a genuine smile, she only had but very rare. Eri, her new daughter, had loved both her parents but was too interested by Izumi. Mei, being incredibly loyal still, had kept her as far away as possible. Papa, you said that you control Japan. Does that make you a ruler? Izuku looked at her with a smile, ruffled her hair and nodded. Like my father before me, ruling Japan by the shadows. But unlike him now, I have control over nearly everything. He simply said, only a select few knowing Izuku's real father and who he was. Now if people weren't afraid of Izuku beforehand, they are now. Eri, I think we should try to train your Quirk again. I think Papa has some things to do, she said, winking at Izuku who had a blank expression before his eyes widened. Nanny, was the exact words that went through his head, before Eri was picked up by her grandfather and went to train. Mei came back in and walked over, kissing his lips. We barely have any time together, so I am making this count. Izuku heard the pure laughter of Himawari in his head, scaring him again because of her little mission she had been on. When did I get back? Long enough to hear that myself is getting laid. Come on, me. Help me. Sorry, me, but we are fucked, literally. If you hadn't noticed, they had started to refer to themselves as being the same person, but having separate personalities. And what was the physical embodiment of Izuku's Quirk doing, you may ask? The same reason Izuku wasn't out for a while. They were torturing Izumi, but this time, Himawari was attacking one for all itself. Izuku's thoughts were cut off by Mei's hand touching his face. She looked him in the eyes, her face near his, their breaths colliding with each other's. Before long, they were in a makeout session. Over at President of Hero Association office. Izuku Midoriya. Just who are you? You can call me Fate. Do you see, Miss Number 1? The era of heroes is coming to an end. Izuku told the number 1 hero of America, Star and Stripe. He was smiling at her, after revealing who he truly was. The smug smile on his face making her want to punch more than she did already. You're just a villain in power. You won't be in power forever. She then tried to activate her Quirk, but then Izuku's plan came into play. Suddenly, his face was covered in blood, cuts on his face with a massive one on his back, clothes ruffled up and torn. She turned around to see the room basically destroyed, with a man coming into the room with a camera behind her. And then it clicked. She was being tricked. She wasn't brought there to be talked to, but to be framed and weaken American ideals on heroes. Everyone across the world saw her in a room, she being perfectly fine as Izuku on the ground, looking as if he was going to die. Her eyes were filled with horror. You heroes are trying to plummet this world into chaos. Izuku barely got out. Guards came in, looking at the room and their boss, with the only logical answer being that she was attempting to kill him. President. He is right, all you heroes are monsters. A guard shouted. Never in her life had she heard those words being directed at her. She was stunned at them saying this. Get the president out. The heroes are trying to assassinate him. And some did come in and get Izuku on a stretcher and out of the building. Wait, it's not. Shut it, villain. You're under arrest and will be trialed for your actions. No, he is. We said shut it. They all had guns on her now. She didn't want to harm them, yet she would be forced to. America was already looking for help from him with their heroes, having some major scandals in the past. This would only cement the reasoning to get rid of heroes further. Not only Japan now, but America and possibly more countries. The era of the heroes was truly over. She thought carefully, before having to escape. She knew that there had to be someone who would believe her. And UA seemed her only hope. She knew it seemed basic and would be checked, but they were her only option. As Izuku was being put into an ambulance, many had come to see what had happened. The horror of seeing the man who was truly saving the world, in their eyes, being put into an ambulance had shocked them all. Plus, seeing the building's top roof, where his office was, being brought up in flames. Even the remaining heroes found it plausible that it was Star and Stripe who had done this. The only one who hadn't was All Might and Nizu. You have skills only I thought I had. All for one smiled at the TV, seeing it all play out. Sitting near him, stood Izuku. He was watching the scene as well, happy with the outcome. Well, we are going to change the world. We have to get rid of our opponents, he said, smiling now knowing he has more control over more countries soon enough. Of course, he viewed it as his hero cleansing. Her quirk would have been nice to have. But yours makes up for that. Though I do ask, how could someone beat you with such a strength? The symbol of villainy, asked the New Age Emperor. Though through their bond, Izuku wouldn't trust him. We might be allies now, but I wouldn't reveal any real information about my Quirk's weaknesses. Now if you excuse me, I have a hero to fight. He was about to leave, before All for One turned around, looking in his direction. And why would she be any value to you now? Curiosity was within his voice, though Izuku chuckled. He looked at his hand, seeing an imprint of something on there. Not yet. But we have connections, and that connection needs to be stopped. He walked out, teleporting to meet the hero to finally beat his one of many weakness. Star and Stripe was nearing Yue, in secret. Yet she had felt as if a pair of eyes were tracking her every movement. And when she stepped a bit out, it had struck. As if it was eagle getting its prey. For a split second, she had noticed that she was sent flying off course. Being rammed into a brick wall, standing near her, was Izuku. Though he was in more of a black suit, with a white unbuttoned shirt, but his blazer being buttoned up. He also had an imprint of a red rose on his hand. Izuku had a smile on his face, looking at her as smoke appeared around them. You should be more aware of your surroundings, Miss Bate. He told her, pointing his right hand at her, with a jet of purple lighting leaving his fingernails and rushing towards her. The fact that he had more than one quirk did shock her. She got up quickly, dodging the lighting. She was confused now about the smoke, the lighting, and then how Izuku was able to generate wounds on himself yet still be fine. Her head hurt thinking about that. Yet not because of the information, but the familiarity of Izuku for some reason. She decided that placing a law on him would probably be the best thing. So she tried to punch Izuku, for him to only grab her arm, throw her up in the air and jump up himself, to do a heavy swing with his leg to slam her down. While he graciously came down, petals of a rose around him, with the smoke still surrounding them and light barely entering. She made her law. I declare the villain Fate unable to use his quirk, or he will become paralyzed. She thought she won with that. She thought he would be a fool and not listen to him, yet he walked over, unafraid about her words. She saw his face, a smile from ear to ear, yet it was more like a sneer. As if he was going to laugh like a villain in her face, then proceed to throw her in acid. Oh, you just don't understand. He twitched in happiness when he saw her eyes have a slight fear in them. No, you realized, didn't you? It's finally time you understood. He placed his hand on her head and stared down at her. That we are the same. He squinted his eyes, seeing her close her fist and throw a jab to his stomach, but he broke her shoulder with a simple glance. She knew what he meant, and if that was true, then it was game over time. Nizu remembered a disturbing event that happened in his life, a picture of something he couldn't out his hand on. Yet when he looked further, he saw a little girl with long white glowing hair, dark green mischievous eyes with a small body with pale yet fair skin. She wore the Yui uniform and was next to a boy with short white hair, light green eyes and similar skin. Those two died though. So how comes Fate reminds me of that girl? He remembered what happened to these two as well. Their quirks became too much for them to handle, and so were destroyed by their quirks. Yet when even All for One went to try and get their quirks, nothing remained. Their quirks, declarations, and the other fate. Names: Himawari and Isuru. In society, many believed fate to be the establishing force of the Izuku Midoriya. Many followed Izuku, and Izuku never acknowledged him as a villain, though the remaining heroes tried to stop him. Retired heroes had to be called back, and with the last remaining amount, were planning their attack on the Emperor. Rumors had said of where his base was, though it was unknown if they were true. Though they had captured a man who had said he was on the run. Apparently he had promised Fate something but never gave it. Everyone who knows of Fate knows that he would have some sort of way to stop him, and he did. After they got the info they needed, his head and heart exploded. The sinister cackle of Fate left in the place, as green gas swallowed the body into oblivion. Turns out Fate had planned this, but Nizu had his suspicions on this and was able to learn more about Fate. He had decided that Fate's power was not of a human. Also starting the fact with the evidence of strong quirks destroying their users, which Nizu had first-hand experience of. He came to the conclusion that Fate had control over his own fate, but others. But he also pieced more evidence to say that Fate had major connections to Izuku Midoriya, though unknown how. But the one he went by was the hair. Fate had a section of his hair different to the rest. Looking at his neck, the hair behind it is a midnight black. Izuku has the same, though a bit lighter. A small observation, but could work. Such a small detail, yet the familiarity of it got Izu. While this was happening, Izuku Midoriya had been starting a plan to end all other plans. Though that would wait as his fight with Star and Stripe was still going. Since left off, Izuku has got a bit too arrogant, allowing her to still use her quirk, but now, it was completely different. Fate. I don't know what you plan or what your plan involves. But today I end your tyranny, she said, trying to kick him, as Fate easily caught it through her back. In society, Miss Star, there are a few things in it that are a constant. Hate, discrimination, and harm. No matter what, these will be a conflicting force and driving act of why our people, in all countries, can never really coexist. When quirks began, hate was towards this with them. But as it grew, it changed. As someone who has been in these attacks, you don't know how to properly treat it. You're still in the mindset that all might will save you. Wake up. Your eyes give you a reality of make-believe. This world has become a fairy tale, and I am the adult taking this story away from all you children. This world I burn, the new I build. To create good, evil must take place. To create evil, good must take place. An ever-ending cycle of bullshit. She runs up, with him simply catching her fist. He kneed her in the stomach, now starting his Villian monologue. I have a dream. That one day every person in this world will control their own destiny. A paradise of the truly free, damn it. A world of action, not words, ruled by coexistence, not quirks. Where the law changes to suit for those who need it, and not for those who abuse. Where power and justice are back where they belong. In the hands of the people. He kicked her in the knee, then placing a jab at her throat before throwing her at the wall. She still got up, but he dodged, wrapped his arms around her waist, and gave a German suplex. Then he quickly got up and kicked her up in the air, before punching into the wall when she got close enough. She though tried again, ending with him holding her arm in one place by twisting her arm around her back. Where every man is free to think, to act for himself. He tells the hero, headbutting her, before swing his right hand, smashing her across the face and sending her flying off. Sliding on the ground before bouncing off like a rock being skipped, landing in the abandoned house. Fuck all these limp-dick politicians and chicken shit heroes. He appears, smashing his foot in her back. Her screams could be heard for a mile, twisting his boat in her back. Fuck this 24-hour internet spew of hero and villain bullshit. He electrocutes her through sending a current into her back through his leg, the energy enough to fry the nerves and damage the spine. Fuck American pride. Fuck the media. Fuck all of it. He stops his assault looking at his damage before lifting her head and punching her, slamming his foot down on hers, so she go flying due to the force of his punches, and continuously punching her over and over. After, he let her fall. The world is diseased. Rotten to the core. There's no saving it, we need to pull it out by the roots. Wipe the slate clean. Burn it down. As she tried to get up, he kicked her head from the side, wresting her progress. And from the ashes, a new world will be born. Evolved and tamed. The weak will be protected and the strongest will protect them. Everyone free to live as they see fit, they'll make the world great again. He continued telling her, while she noticed the green aura around him change, becoming darker. In my new world, people will die and kill for what they believe. Not for money. Not for oil. Not for what they're told is right. Every man will be free to fight his own wars. And I will be there. Watching, controlling. By the end of it, I will be the only leader left. Everyone will only follow me. He told her, whipping the blood from his suit. As he watched her struggle, he sat on a large butt of rubble. He looked up as rain started to pour. He raised his hand, catching some within it. You can't stop what has begun. I have made it so my control will be true. My power is unlimited. And even your precious America is not safe. My influence is already running within, and the war will start. Izuku started to chuckle, seeing her determination not stop. Maybe your boyfriend could help you. Her eyes widened as his smile only grew. Oh, I know him. Actually, he works for me. He will start the war that will make Russia and America weak, and within that time, I will move in and take it. As she got back up, helicopters started to arrive, with the logo all heroes feared. HES, Hero Extermination Squad. A subgroup of Izukus, their main job is to hunt and destroy heroes who are a threat to Izuku and his empire. If a threat, they will be there. And the worst part is, they conducted local execution, with the crowd watching with happiness. Izuku truly has made the people. A single figure dropped out of it, expertly guiding to safety. Emperor. He acknowledged Izuku, landing in front of him, bowing before him. We shall take her from here. Please don't waste your time on a lowlife. His eyes were a ruby red, a scar on his left eye, going from up, left side of his face to down it. He was young, around 22, yet his hair was already white due to extreme stress when growing up. Though formerly quirkless, he had been a very successful hero killer, finding his way into Izuku's ranks and gaining the power of future vision, which was a quirk crafted by Izuku for him. He wore a black suit, with armor around the chest, knees, elbows and neck, the suit being grade 5 nanosuit crafted for this group. More members dropped down, similar suits, masks on, which represented the Oni with dragon features, and carrying a quirk-destroying, lethal class, assault rifle with one member carrying a sniper rifle. The only difference between members was the color of mask, expect the leader who didn't wear one. Thank you, Alpha, Izuku said, the darkness around him encasing him, with him gone from plain view. Alpha got up, turned around and duel, zombie knife-looking katanas dropping down in helicopter and catching them. It's time to catch ourselves a hero. Turn to non-lethal bullets. She is wanted for crimes against the Emperor, and therefore, Japan. He pointed his left katana to her. And no, she weakly said. It's manipulating you. She tried to tell them, a small sneer growing on Alpha's face. You heroes weren't doing anything different. The group got ready to shot, though she was able to escape due to a rebellion group able to get to her, though those who tried to hold them back were brutally gunned down. To all Japan. The Villian Star and Stripes is still out there. A group of rebellious hero sympathizers are on the loose, saving her. Stay inside until HES has bring them to justice. Glory to the Emperor. Glory to the Empire. I didn't mean it. The screams of pain and sorrow screeched throughout the Emperor's palace. There, the weak-looking Izumi Yagi was chained to a wall, where the person she tormented for years stood over her, his eyes full of such hate that it became almost an addiction. She was tormented by him, while that quirk's spirit of his caused pain within her mind. Oh, I don't blame you. I blame the society you were born in. The corrupt world I wish to destroy. What I hate is you never considered me. You never thought it was too much. Though Izuku had changed since his more naive self, he still cried, a tear falling from his eyes. I considered you my sister. You were never that person I could rely on, he said calmly, though the godlike man now spoke more human, showing his humanity. I can't tell you how many times I have considered rewriting time to make that bond still alive. Izumi could only look at him, though a clear indication of regret in her eyes. She knew one thing, the man had way too many insecurities he kept hidden, and this was one. So don't you kill me, was all she could say as Izuku's once mischievous dark green eyes turned emerald. 'Cause I still love you. A part of me still wants me to love you because I always loved you, always forgiving you. Just say it. He pleaded with her, though she didn't know what he meant, but the twisted look of hope and sorrow in Izuku's face said it all. Say that you didn't come up with the idea. He screamed at her, showing for once, the old Izuku. Her brother. Her younger brother. She thought carefully of her next words, and silently responded. I'm sorry. Though it was quite, Izuku fell to his knees. The realization setting into his face of an answer he knew but wished it wasn't. But that humanity he had was slowly replaced by just rage. But he didn't let it out. I still don't believe you. Who out of them came up with the idea? Izumi knew what she said was true, but partly. It was Endeavor. What? Shoto asked to his father what was the best solution. He responded by saying weakness should be snuffed out. He said that it would make you stronger and I was still hoping you would be able to fight by my side one day. I didn't know what I was doing. Izuku listened to every word, still unsure. Papa was willing to give me one for all from the start, but I convinced you should have had it. I was so happy you finally got a quirk. I never realized how bad I was. Even after all that pain you suffered, and yet I could never see it. Izumi. I don't know if I can believe you fully. Her head shot up to see the return of his mischievous eyes and the sly smile back on his face. What do you think of my acting? Though most was true and I will reconsider a few things, you just gave me more evidence to use against the heroes. You really are a helpful sister now, aren't you? He spoke with a small chuckle. Give me back my quirks and then we can talk more as siblings. No more harsh feelings towards each other. Just you joining this new family you can be with. To atone and become part of my empire. Then we are siblings once more. He offered, him having an overconfident smile on his face, similar to his own father in these situations. She considered it. After all the pain he had put her through, she understood him more and wanted nothing but to be forgiven. She desperately wanted it. She just wanted to be free. And, like others, gave her life, her heart, her soul to Izuku, her new emperor. The Fallen has returned, he announced, claiming his former quirk, and with that, All Might felt it. The connection restored, and now, the dark green eyes looming over him at all times. 9 the Fallen. 9 the ruler. 9 Emperor for all. The boast in his already insane power made him truly a god. He became more, and his body adapted to the changes, reshaping itself to fit his needs once more. Now, he became something different. The incarnation of, not villains, not heroes, but fate. God have mercy on the heroes, because this new one doesn't have a slight bit of remorse for them. Well done, Izumi. His new deeper voice having an almost dominating presence of its own. There stood Izuku, though his muscles were more prominent than before. But his eyes no longer were green, which led Izumi to make the quick assumption that he was bound no longer by his humanity. The glowed, shined, but danced in darkness as well. Surprised. I am as well. Though with this, I don't hear her anymore, he said to himself, his face showing some concern. Himawari, respond. He ordered yet nothing. But then, he heard her. She was laughing at him, though it was fading. You really did trick her there, Izuku, she said faintly. She was no longer having that same sassy nature or anything, speaking as if she was a genuine person. Guess we stop off her. In darkness. Where we first met. Himawari. What's going on? What's happening? You, me, I. We're one being. Sadly, it looks like my powers have become yours truly. I have nothing to hold back from you or for you to have. But you're my quirk. Was. But you have become us entirely now. Sorry, Master, I am no longer any use for you. Now I return to what I was. Being another part of you. But you can always make me a real person. Bakani. And with that, Izuku's mind was empty. Only him in there. No other voice, no one around. Just all a part of him. Though she was right, he had grown so used to her, he felt alone. I know what I am doing first. He spoke to himself, before looking at Izumi. After all, Himawari was my ideal sister. I'll just merge them together and make her real. Izumi looked at Izuku, as he placed his hand on her face. Night, night. Sleep tight. Her eyes were filled with fear. Before all there was darkness. She was repurposed. 10 days later. June 27th, 10:30 a.m. Where am I? Thought the black-haired girl, looking around as her head was dizzy. Izuku. This isn't his mind. She told herself, getting out of the bed, though noticing her legs were weak, as if she had a physical form. After many minutes of getting herself to stand, she went before the mirror, after learning how to walk in this body, and saw herself. She was no longer a lowly inside someone's head. She was a real girl. She even pinched herself to find that she felt pain. She didn't understand it yet. Though as she looked around, the door of her new room opened, revealing the newer Izuku. He looked shocked but relieved to see her awake. What's wrong? Shocked that your lowly voice is alive, she said, trying to be scary, though he gently rubbed her head. He smiled with tears in his eyes. You're much more better in real life. She gained a tick mark and punched him in the stomach, making him fall to his knees. Still doing that, I see. She looked down proudly, having sparkles around her. I am the best thing that ever existed, she said confidently with pride, before asking a question that bugged her. How did you do it? Well, I would rather have you as a sister than Izumi, so I kinda replaced her. Her eyes widened in pure shock, realizing he legit killed Izumi, replacing her existence with hers in that instant as well. You're now broken, was all she could say, now him having his sly smile. I even revived my mother. What? But she died before you could do anything. How? Because I can. That's not an answer. Well, it just is. Himawari stood there, not answering before deciding on one thing. I am Himawari Midoriya, daughter of Hisashi and Inko Midoriya, sister of the great Emperor Izuku Midoriya, and bringer of all chaos and destruction. You are adorable. No, I am evil. Truly the most terrifying evil of all time. No, you are pretty adorable. Go fuck yourself. Got made for that. You will regret this. How? Consecutive nut buster. What no? She proceeded to punch him so many times in the nuts, It even made the weather feel bad for him. That's it, guys. That was the full stuff. Until the author add more chapters. Take care.